Coming at you full-fledged. It's your boy Regg, with another video for y'all, man. Welcome, YouTube. So, I was just sitting here thinking to myself, I know a lot of people got their favorite players lists, and that is a good indication to show how educated people are on the history of basketball, if you care, of course, because you don't really have to. In essence, it's just basketball, but of course, this is a YouTube channel that's mainly centered around basketball. But y'all know what I'm saying. But anyway, yeah, I kind of wanted to do something a little different with this video, and I wanted to share my favorite decades, top 3 decades particularly. Basketball, I mean, a lot of rules have changed. But basketball, at the end of the day, is basketball. But eras, decades specifically, have been personified by how they've been played and their players. So these are my top 3 ever in the history of basketball. So number 3, I would have to go with the 2000s for sure. Why? Because that is the greatest defensive era in basketball history. You had to be a real artist offensively. This era, more than any era, personified the greatness of an elite offensive NBA player, because how good of the defense was. And at the same time, you can say NBA elites were shut down in this era more often than not. You had Allen Iverson, who had multiple seasons shooting in the 30s. You had Kobe Bryant shooting in the low 40s in the 2000s. Crazily enough, he didn't shoot in the 30s until later in his career when he was on the brink of retirement. Another reason this is one of my favorite decades in basketball history, of course, one of my favorite players growing up. I mean, I was born in 98, so I kind of seen this era and other eras preceding it. And my favorite player, Tim Duncan, San Antonio Spurs, not necessarily a dynastic team because it wasn't nonstop greatness. They won in 99, then they won in 03, arguably their best team in 03, then they had 07, 05 against the Pistons. If you are a fan of defensive basketball, when you straight slugfest, where you see scores of 70, 75 and 78, go watch those mid-2000 playoffs, bro. Go watch the Detroit Pistons against the Indiana Pacers. We're back with Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest, Reggie Miller, all them boys. Go watch them. Go watch the Pistons Spurs 2005 finals. Yes, the ratings weren't particularly high, but if you're a purist, if you love hoops, you will love that era, I'm telling you. Yeah, they did have a dynasty in the 2000s. The 2000s had a dynasty. If they had the three-peat Lakers, of course. In my opinion, the lowest IQ dynasty in NBA history. Kobe and Shaq, of course, one of the greatest duos ever. But yeah, they had it all. They had dynasties, they had upsets, they had great teams, hella 50-win teams. It was the decade of the power forward. You had Tim Duncan, Rasheed Wallace, Chris Webber, Kevin Garnett, Dirk. Who else? Who am I missing? David West, LaMarcus Aldridge later, Amari Stoudemire, Robert Horry was still playing. Robert Horry. It was the decade of the forwards, and that's why if now you know why the power forward was my favorite position in basketball history. But we move forward to my second. Similar to the 2000s. It wasn't as defensive, but it was just as physical. This is the 1990s, of course, the decade that made basketball, NBA in particular, what made the decade that made the game go global. Spearheaded behind Michael Jordan and the dynastic Chicago Bulls, arguably the greatest dynasty in NBA history. Of course, you kicked off the decade with a back-to-back, which didn't happen in a long time. That was historic with the Bad Boy Pistons. And an historically transcended team. When you look at it, that team would dominate today. Then you had the Bulls, who quiet as kept. Shout out to Carcino for life, because he kind of go overboard with it, but he kind of makes some valid points as to how influential the Bad Boy Pistons are to the game. And the Chicago Bulls definitely took some of their tricks, the physicality that was followed in the 90s, the late 80s headed into the 90s. Not just that, you had the perimeter defense, Ron Harper, Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan. You had some of their players, even Dennis Rodman and John Sally, and even more. You had the 90s Knicks. Them was football players. Them was football players playing basketball. You had Charles Oakley, Larry Johnson, Anthony Mason. You feel me? Them big dudes, like straight weightlifters. You feel me? Then you had the Karl Malones and the Charles Barkleys. You would see some fisticuffs thrown every now and then, which And again, back then it was still team. You still had team more so now than ever. The team concept in basketball is gone. It's gone. You got pseudo GMs, pseudo agents. It's gone, and I don't think that. And I forgot to not to digress and to go back, but I forgot to mention this about the 2000s. This is one thing I don't like about the 2000s. After the decade of the 90s was the team concept was lost in the 2000s of basketball. You definitely had a lot of Michael Jordan, for lack of a better term, imposters, because some of them, they did as best they could, and they did very well in their impersonation of the style of Michael Jordan, which was the hero ball style. But the difference was he learned how to win in that hero ball style that was centered around the triangle system. And a lot of those teams were not running the triangle. They were just running straight hero ball and one carrying the ball and one style of basketball. You know, Allen Iverson's one of my favorite players to watch. Tracy McGrady, Kobe Bryant. Like I said, a lot of these players, while the defense was great, a lot of these players just simply were not as efficient as Michael Jordan at what he was doing, and they was breaking a lot of shots. Like I said, Allen Iverson has multiple seasons shooting in the 30s, so in the 30 percentiles. That's not good. That's very bad. But considering the defensive era, I'm not gonna get on him too hard about that. But you had that has to be noted. Same for Kobe Bryant when it relates to who was the greatest of all time. So I digress. But that kind of mesh, those kind of mesh. I think the 90s was what the 2000s would have been if everything would have been right. The 2000s was more of a degradation of the 90s. So those are my top 2 eras of all time. Now my greatest era, these are my favorite greatest kind of ever. Well, they are different, but this is my opinion. Same time, but damn, my bad, y'all. Number 1 favorite era of all time, I gotta go with the 60s. The 60s, not the 80s. Not the era of the small forwards. The era of the centers. The era of the big man. I like the big man, bro. The art of the big man is gone, bro. Like I said in my top 10 all-time short reels, whatever platform you've seen it on, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Regg, cheap plug. Go subscribe, follow on all the platforms. You feel me? But I said that they used to be the anchor of the defense and the offense, and that was true. And especially then in the 60s, basketball was still in its infancy, but it was getting more modernized, especially with it being integrated with so-called black players. And we move away from the George Mikan era of basketball and the dynastic Lakers to the Bill Russell era of basketball with the dynastic Boston Celtics, arguably the greatest dynasty in NBA history and the greatest dynasty in American team sports. I will go by far and I will say that the Boston Celtics are the greatest dynasty in American sports, period. But NBA dynasty, I would have that up there with the Chicago Bulls. It's them two only. And yeah, we saw modern defense be gestated, created, curated, whatever words you want to use, originated, perfected by Bill Russell. Modern defense, modern help defense, modern on-ball defense, the fast break, modern fast breaks, off-ball movement, shot blocking, steals that weren't even recorded yet. We seeing these personified, perfected in that era when they weren't even recorded by Bill Russell, by Wilt Chamberlain. We seen shot blocking perfected by those two players. We seen steals perfected in that era, and into the mid 70s with Walt Clyde Frazier and Jerry West. Imagine if those two players had their steals recorded, they would be, I think Jerry West would be right on John Stockton, and Walt Clyde Frazier probably too. But yeah, the 60s, what can I say? Again, they had the Celtics, they had Elgin Baylor, who saved the LA Lakers. What we know them today, what we know the Lakers today to be, would not been without Elgin Baylor and his contributions to the organization in the 60s. y'all already know about that. I'm gonna drop the Elgin Baylor video in the description below. But yeah, you got that. Um, yeah, man, it's so many. What else? What's another factor of the '60s that I liked? It was it was the now this the polar opposite. Why I said the reason why the 2000s is my favorite because it was the most defensive. You could say on the opposite end, the '60s is my favorite because the offense. It was the fastest pace, so you had the fastest pace go in that they had. I'm not gonna say they had the better. I'm not gonna say they had the better athletes, but it was different, bro. It was different. They was playing in so many different conditions, bro. And the sports science of it all. Like look at a Wilt Chamberlain. How can a 7-footer play every minute, average every minute, play every minute of every game and some 48.5 minutes a game that season? Average 50, 25 rebounds. Like I said, the pace was so fast. No 3-point line, so it's all twos. Like, think about that. The wear and tear on a human body, the elite level athlete human body. Let me specify. Like, imagine if they had all the advancements the athlete has today then. Like, boy, you talk about 2K numbers. You talk about the numbers that players putting up today, which are similar to the numbers back then. It's not even, the numbers today ain't even still not as high as the numbers back then. And they very close, but they still not. It's that, but at the same time, you had great defense because it was still, this is the quintessence. This decade is the quintessence of positional basketball. You want to see a real chess match. You could say that in the '90s, but the '90s and the '80s, they had a little more creativity. It's a lot of players that redefined or revolutionized those positions. But in the decade of the '60s, particularly, you had great centers, man. You had great centers: Chamberlain, Russell, Nate Thurman, Walter Bellamy, Wes Unseld Sr. Who else? Artis Gilmore, who was playing in the ABA at the time, but he was still playing. Well, I don't think Artis Gilmore was playing that early in the '60s, but who else? Zelmo Beatty. Who else? I said Nate Thurman. Bob Lanier. Man, you had great big men. Then great point guards. Bob Cousy, Oscar Robertson, shooting guard, Sam Jones, Jerry West, small forwards, Rick Barry, Elgin Baylor. Like, come on, man. Like, we already know what it is. But yeah, those three are definitely my favorite eras. I would have to, as far as the 2010s and the 2020s go, frankly, these are some of the worst eras of basketball. I caught the last great era, bro. I caught the last great era. The 2010s and the 2020s, of course, they had their great moments, but the game hasn't advanced, bro. It's devolved. Like, every era has brought something positive to the game. The 2010s on, I'm going to say it's been more negative than positive. Like, the game has, yes, the NBA, the league, has gotten more successful revenue-wise. But the game has not advanced. How has the game advanced? Yes, you. What can you say? The players have gotten more quote unquote skilled, which basically means they all doing the same thing. They can all dribble, shoot, pass, but the game has supposed to be about positions. So the game has gotten positionless. So it's watered down. The game has gotten positionless. All they really worrying about is how it can make more money. The team concept is gone. It was a Clipper commentator that said this against in the game when they was facing the Pistons a while back. They had on alternate jerseys. They said, I guess you can't have home and team jerseys when he was basically alluding to the fact that home and team jerseys don't exist no more. He said when you have more jerseys, you can make more money basically. So they making more money. You know the crazy thing, they making, I mentioned this before in that Adam Silver video, which I'm also gonna drop in the description below. They making more money. Everybody making more money, but nobody watching. Like, that business wise, that don't make sense. Like, how are these players making? I mean, yes, it's more ways of revenue. Yes, it's way more. Yes, television isn't what it used to be, but still, nobody is watching. Like, this is like, I ain't gonna say it's the 70s bad, but nobody watching, and all these avenues to watch and nobody's watching. That's the issue. In the game, the way it's played, this three-point happy. I'm not saying Steph Curry. I'm saying the way other teams are playing in light of the impact Steph Curry had. There's no creativity at all. No defense. Too much offense. Not good enough offense. Not creative enough offense. No defense. The physicality is gone. Players are soft. There's no trash talking. No type of team concept with all the free agency. All that, man. We already know. The 80s. The 80s, it wasn't great era. That's right out. That's in my top 5 for sure. Top 5s along with the 70s, but they kind of missed out because I'm gonna say Michael Jordan, you can't tell the story of basketball without Michael Jordan. Not to say that you can tell it without Magic and Bird, but because they say the league, but they made it go national, but he made it go global. You know what I'm saying? Like, you say Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, yeah, you say that to a particular person, yeah, they may know who he is because of how old they are, but you say Michael Jordan, you don't even think basketball when you say Michael Jordan. You think shoes. He on that Mount Olympus. He on that Babe Ruth, Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell. Well, not even Bill Russell. Michael Jordan, he on that Mount Olympus. You feel me? Not even Mount Rushmore. But he on the Mount Rushmore of basketball. But 70s. The reason I don't have 70s in my top 3, because they had 2 leagues. You know, they had the ABA and the NBA. Not a lot of the ABA's history has been, a lot of it has been recorded, but I'm pretty sure all of it hasn't been gotten, you know. You had so many good players that won, you know, that didn't go to the NBA after the ABA folded. And we don't have their history, their college history, they prospects coming into the pros type thing. So that, similar to today, in the 70s, nobody was watching because, you know, the superstars were separated between 2 leagues. And the head superstar of that time was a so-called black man, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a recalcitrant type of player. Some would compare him to Kyrie of that time. And at the time, the league was transitioning to being known as a primarily quote-unquote black league. I mean, they had John Havlicek, but Havlicek he was being followed up by, he was the heir to Bill Russell's throne. So by proxy, he was Bill Russell's prodigal son, you know. But yeah, man, I'm not gonna have this video too long. That's my top 3 decades of all time, man. Let me know y'all's below. Do y'all agree with mine? What would you switch them? Is it something I forgot? What are some cons about these decades? Name a con and a pro. Name a con and a pro of each basketball decade, if you can. And, you know, just share it with me, you know. That's all I got to say in this video, man. Hit that like button. Comment at the beginning and the middle. Comment at the beginning, middle, and ending of the video. Share for others to see. Of course, subscribe if you're new. I would appreciate it. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I drop. The new year is coming, man, and I'm coming up with new ideas, man. I'm just, again, thank y'all for the support, man. I really went serious with this last September, and look where I'm at now. And I just want to thank y'all for that. Yeah, I said hit the notification bell. If there's anything, if there's a particular topic you want me to speak on, or if you just want to donate to the, or you just want to contribute to the progression of the channel, hit that link in the pinned comment section below and donate to the Raise, man. And I am Audi 5000.